Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and once again we are back talking about the Fire Emblem Engage DLC and asking the question, is it pay to win? And furthermore, what does pay to win even mean in a single player game? Now, this is something that I polled my channel to see if they might be interested in hearing my thoughts on this, hearing my takes on this, and they said yes. 35% of people wanted this video as of the recording over some of the other ones that I wanted to talk about. So we're doing it. So now that we have Wave 3 of the Fire Emblem Engage expansion pass, we can see that we have, if you look closely there, all of the characters that have been announced at least open up. All of the emblems, all of the emblem maps, all of the extra items, all of the extras here and there. Oh, looks like the music just skipped. Awesome. So we have Tiki, Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude, Hector, Soren, Camilla, Veronica, Chrom, and Robin as emblems. We have in-game support items. We know what these are. These are silver weapons. These are some fun accessories. These are one of every single stat booster. These are several free SP books, which used to be the only way to get the SP books. The silver card, which is found on Tiki's Paralog, all the different emblems, which give special bonuses. Each of them have a map as well, except for the Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude, which is just a viewable event. Additional in-game support items, I think that's also gold, as well as the books. I forget the exact stuff, because I don't have the DLC. We still do not have Wave 4. Details to be revealed later. The new story scenario fell Xenologue, new characters, locations, and map, and the added class types. That is the, potentially among others, the Enchanter and the Mage Cannon armor. I forget what it's called. The Mage Cannon Armor Knight with the unique weapon type that blows up to shell an area. Basically, you have a gun lance from Monster Hunter, and it's cool. So, the question on everyone's mind, though, which is why I'm making this video, which is in the title of the video, is this pay to win? What does pay to win even mean? Now, as you may know from the video that I posted before Engage launched, I was worried about the DLC being pay to win. I was worried that, with the silver card and the stat boosters, I didn't even know what the emblems did. But with the silver card and with the stat boosters, I was very worried that we would be getting a situation in which the DLC felt mandatory to purchase for anyone to basically have a hope of winning the harder difficulties without, some really abusive builds. I was worried that this was going to be a case of something like Fire Emblem Awakening Lunatic Plus, where it is theoretically possible to beat that without access to any DLC, but it forces you into a handful of optimal builds in order to do so, and even then you're still pretty much struggling until you get them fully going, and the DLC could just be an easy way to immediately get those builds going because it's infinite money, infinite experience, and infinite everything you want after Chapter 4 or 5 or whatever that is. And so I was worried that that sort of thing would happen with Engage. Now, granted, I will say, Fire Emblem Engage is very well balanced, very well optimized. You do not need the DLC to beat Maddening at all. And not that Maddening isn't hard or challenging, but you do not need to rely on abusive tactics in order to beat Maddening without DLC. It is just a challenging but fair and fun difficulty mode, and it is balanced clearly without DLC in mind. So, with that out of the way, is the DLC pay to win, and why does that even matter? It's a single player game, why does it matter? Well, the DLC sells a lot of power. Tiki has a lot of crazy buffs. The Star Sphere ability alone, not to mention when you actually equip Tiki, the buffs that she gives, and her ultimate giving a revival stone to one of your units is insane. But I would argue that just Star Sphere alone is enough to say that the DLC is just broken, because how many people have commented on my video on Jean, saying, well, if you just give him Star Sphere from Tiki and then put him into General, he has over 100% defense growth, who can have that? And I would reply to you with, giving Tiki Star Sphere to anyone completely breaks them, because that is so many growth. It's like 15%, I want to say, to all growths, including build. It's absolutely insane. Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude, in combat, you can have some crazy stuff. I believe someone was saying that with Edelgard, you can have multiple turns. I forget exactly how the specifics on that work. The other emblems, you have Hector, who is a really beefy boss, enemy phase tanking emblem. You have Soren, who gives you bolting as an emblem weapon. The only long range attack you have access to in the game outside of Lynn's ultimate, outside of Astrostorm, and technically Thrysis on a Sage with Thunder gets like 5 range, so that's pretty decent range. But 3 to 10 range for multiple turns is pretty good. And Flare, I think, though, is the biggest thing that Soren gives, is Flare allowing for effectively Nosferatu tanking strategies. If everyone's seen the Farghast video where he takes Sage Jean, I don't even know if he's Jean as a Sage, but takes Jean, equips Soren, and then just enemy phases an entire skirmish. Yeah, you can do some crazy stuff with Soren. Camilla, less broken, but still has some fun stuff. Thunder as a Brave Effect Tome. The smoke veins that she gives, or not smoke veins, but the dragon veins that she gives are different from Corrin's. Some of them are the same, some of them are different. They provide just kind of a different layer of interesting stuff. Different layer of strategy you can use. Veronica, it's a free 1-unit summon, as well as basically a dance, but you can't move, you can only attack. And some other fun stuff as well, 4 to 5+ on a staff. Oh yeah, Soren is also good for XP grinding with Reflect. And then Crom and Robin, I haven't actually heard too much about Crom and Robin. I've heard that their paralog, apparently a lot of people really hate it. That's all I've heard about it. I haven't heard anything that's like too crazy broken about them. So, on an emblem level, I wouldn't necessarily say that the emblems from the DLC are directly more powerful than the emblems in-game, because you get a lot of broken tools in-game at base. You get Byleth for Goddess Dance, you get Lyn with Astrostorm, and the whole massive speed boost with Speed Taker at Speed Plus and everything. You get a lot of XP from Mercurius on Marth, Lucina, and Parthia, and then Bonded Shields, and as well as, let's not forget, Micaiah, turning any unit into a staff bot, and Great Sacrifice just being a free basically level up every time you use it. There's a lot of really powerful tools in the game at base, so why do people still complain that DLC is pay to win? Well, there are some tools that you can't use in-game without it. Like, whether or not you can argue whether they're stronger or weaker or whatnot, fact of the matter is, you do not have access to something like Revival Stones and Star Sphere without Tiki in the DLC. You do not have access to anything as crazy as Flare without Soren in the DLC. You do not have access to Veronica's free unit summons, which move and attack unlike Lyn's doubles, without Wave 3 of DLC. So fundamentally, there are experiences that people have that are missing from the DLC, or without the DLC. Do I think that is inherently bad? No. I don't think that the DLC is inherently bad. I don't think that it's like stripped content or cut content, this time at least. I feel like one can argue stuff like the silver card, which was put on Tiki's map, is cut content. I feel like we can argue that the silver card is cut content because that is such an iconic thing, and it feels like it was just put onto the DLC to give extra value immediately in Wave 1. I still am going to complain about that, but that is, that's just me. I think that the only complaints about DLC that are truly viable are the cut content complaints. Stuff like the silver card. You can argue the other emblems, but I'm viewing it more as like an expansion pack type thing, where you're going to get a lot more emblems, you're going to get a lot more paralogs, and if you want to argue the power level, here's another thing to consider. Each of these paralogs gives full experience. The enemies don't have Void Curse. You can get experience from them. You can get SP from them. You can play them whenever, and they are scaled to you. So you can play them early, get a lot of SP, before Chapter 10, be able to inherit skills that you won't be able to get elsewhere. You can get Soren and Veronica to give tome proficiency, which, in the base game, you can't give anyone tome proficiency between Chapters 10 and Chapter 19. So, the DLC enables a lot more reclassing options for a lot more units that you don't have without the DLC. Yes, you need bond rank like 16 or 17, but that's just like 4,000 bond fragments. You can afford that. Am I really worried too much about this? No. Do I feel like the DLC has been handled well overall? Yes, so far. Am I still upset that they just give you a lot of freebies for getting the DLC? Yes. There's a lot of people that actually, now that they see how balanced Maddening is without the DLC, wish that they could turn off the DLC to play Maddening and, like, not have all of the bonuses given to them. The silver weapons, the stat boosters, the silver card. Well, technically the silver card isn't a bonus, it's like given to them, that they have to play Tiki and warp to the secret shop space. But there's a lot of stuff that a lot of people, people want, people have been not wanting the freebie bonuses. They just want to kind of choose whether they played the DLC or not, and they want to play the chapters, and they want to play with the fun emblems. The other argument for the DLC being pay to win is that you get access to all of these emblems potentially during the gap where you don't have very many emblem rings elsewise, to put it without major spoilers. Yeah, so all in all, DLC is definitely a massive power jump for people who have it. But then the real question, why do we care? Why do we care about pay to win in a single player game? Why do I care what someone else has access to that I don't have access to? Why do I care about that? Why is it so important? Why is it something that people talk about and argue about all the time? And I think ultimately the reason is fear. And primarily the reason is that people were afraid that Fire Emblem Engage would be balanced with the DLC in mind. That its hardest difficulties would feel almost impossible without the DLC. Why? Well, because we have examples of this happening. We have Fire Emblem Awakenings, Lunatic, and especially Lunatic Plus. Feels very unfair without the DLC. We have Fire Emblem Three Houses, which its maddening difficulty felt for a lot of people like it wasn't really fair without New Game Plus or without some of the DLC stuff. And while I don't think the DLC was as much strict power in Three Houses, you still have to admit that access to like the Ashen Wolves and whatnot is huge. The Ashen Wolves are huge. The extra classes brought in by the Ashen Wolves are pretty huge. And so people were afraid that this would throw the game balance out the window. People were afraid that, hey, all the fun toys get given to the people who, pay $30 extra, and the people who just buy the base game aren't getting anything fun. I think that with Engage, we've shown that that's not the case, but people were worried that it might be the case. And you can look outside of Fire Emblem at a lot of other game franchises. If you look outside of Fire Emblem, especially outside of Nintendo, at the disgusting business practices that companies do, where they build a problem and sell the solution, where as soon as the option to sell people content directly with DLC is an option, they use it, they abuse it, and they nickel and dime players for every cent they can get. And I think people were really afraid that that's what was happening with Fire Emblem. And that's why so many people are against DLC fundamentally, or at least are against DLC unless it adds something that's very significant gameplay-wise to their experience, more so than just buying power or buying convenience. And I think we're still waiting on Wave 4. We're still waiting on Wave 4 as of the making of this video. The new story, Fell Xenologue, we've had teased a little bit of in one of the trailers. We know a couple of the new classes, because they show up as enemies in the new DLC waves. And we have new characters, locations, and maps. This assumes new story, new locations, a fully new arc to the story. I think, all things considered, with all of this, there is a lot going for the DLC. I think that, all things considered, this is probably a pretty good value DLC for people who honestly love the game and just want more, and who want more tools and want more reasons to kind of replay extra times, to play with different emblems, to give emblems to different units. I currently don't own the DLC. I feel like I might purchase it after Wave 4 just to kind of to do a big one run with all the DLC, try out everything, because this game was fun. This game had a lot going for it. I really enjoyed most of this game, and I feel like the DLC feels like an expansion pack, feels like an expansion pass, that it's expanding the game. It's not just taking things out and adding them back in, piecemeal for extra money. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on the DLC? Do you feel like it's been a good cost, a good value proposition? Do you feel like people are blowing things out of proportion with their complaints of pay to win? Do you feel the DLC is still pay to win, and why do you feel that? Let me know in your comments down below, and until next time, this is Mithril Zenith signing out.